Hi, it's Dana here from Ask Dana. I'm Dana Green Remedios, a registered holistic nutritionist, and I answer the questions that you ask me through my Ask Dana video ask. And I'm going to put the link to that down below in case you have a question that you would like me to answer. Charisse asked a great question about iron. She wants to know what kind of iron to take so that she can avoid the competition that tends to happen between iron and other minerals because she needs those other minerals to support healthy blood pressure. She also wants to know what about iron and low stomach acid and iron and multivitamins. So this is a really interesting three-part question. Let's get into it. So when you're supplementing with iron, you may have them referred to as iron salts. They can be also referred to as iron compounds or iron chelates. And you may have been recommended one in particular, such as ferrous sulfate, because that's the one that mostly ends up to be at the pharmacy. And you might have gotten really confused about the amount to take and what's the difference between one kind versus another kind. So there are generally three main types of iron. There's iron in the heme form, which is like what you get in meat, or they get it from blood and make it a supplement, like pig's blood, heme iron that you can get. There's iron, these are supplemental forms of iron that you can get. There's iron in ferritin form, which is available from flora in the form of it's from a legume, so it's from an organic green pea, and that is going to be absorbed in a very different way from the heme iron. And then you have iron salts, and iron salts can also be called iron compounds or iron chelates, and these are absorbed in a very different way from the first two. So three different kinds of iron, and all of them can help you raise your iron levels, but they're going to behave different in the body. They're going to be absorbed differently. They're going to have different requirements for being able to use them. And so if you're looking to avoid competition with other minerals, or you're looking to maximize absorption of iron in the presence of low stomach acid, or you're wondering what you can do if you're also trying to take a multivitamin, let's talk about what to do and how to know what you're taking and all of that and which one to pick. So to explain what an iron salt, iron compound, etc. is, because I think that this is something that is confusing to people. An iron, all minerals to start with, calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc, they all come from rock, right? This is what minerals are. We got animal, vegetable, mineral, right? So these are minerals are rocks. And so we mine them. They come out of the earth. This is where they come from. So if you ever wondered why your supplement isn't certified organic, well, if it didn't grow in the ground, it can't be certified organic. And this didn't grow in the ground, it was the ground, right? So that's what these minerals are. And when you mine them, you want to make sure that you're not getting a bunch of other junk with them, like heavy metals. But other than that, mineral is a mineral. But the form that it's in is going to vary very differently, whether it's a ferrous glycinate or a ferrous fumarate or a ferrous sulfate. A ferrous sulfate means iron in the ferrous, not the ferric form, mixed with sulfuric acid. So this is what it is, a compound between sulfuric acid and iron, so ferrous sulfate. If you have iron in the ferrous form and gluconic acid, then you've got ferrous gluconate, and so on. So the most common supplement that is usually the ones that are sold at the pharmacy is usually ferrous sulfate. This is the one that's most common. You can have some out there that are a little bit less absorbable, like ferrous fumarate, or much less absorbable, like ferrous oxide or ferric oxide. And those might be the very non-bioavailable forms that are in your cereal box that some YouTuber might have made a video about showing how they can collect the iron filings at the bottom of the cereal box with a magnet, because you can do that with cereal. Like if they've fortified it with ferrous fumarate and it's not made into something more bioavailable to you, then you probably are just going to pick it up like iron filings at the bottom of the cereal box. So there's different ways that we can try and make iron more bioavailable to the body. Ferrous gluconate is more bioavailable than ferrous fumarate, therefore less likely to cause digestive problems. Or you can get ferrous bisglycinate, for example. And when you take a ferrous bisglycinate versus a ferrous fumarate or whatever, you're getting a different thing that it's compounded with. So one of the reasons people like bisglycinate, for example, is they end up with glycine, and it's compounded with a couple things with the iron, so you end up with those things as well. So that might be considered a bonus, right? But all of those are all iron compounds. And so they're all getting absorbed the same way in the gut. And every one of them absorbed in the duodenum or duodenum, the part of the digestive tract after the stomach, which is where most of our things get absorbed in general, in the small intestine there. They're all going to be competing with other minerals for absorption to some extent. And in particular, calcium is the one that's most famous for being in competition with iron. We know it's in competition with iron because sometimes the reason little kids become low in iron in the first place because they're drinking gallons and gallons of milk and it's full of calcium and there's a competition there. It also fills them up so that they're not hungry for their iron-rich foods. Calcium is the most famous one for competition. There are other competitions as well. Zinc is a competitor. There's a bit of an interaction between calcium and iron in a way that they are kind of opposites to each other. Copper and zinc are also opposites to each other, and then there's an interaction between copper and iron where you need enough copper to absorb your iron. So if you have too much zinc, then it may be impacting your iron by affecting your copper, but also too much copper is not good for your iron absorption. So you can see there's quite a relationship between all the minerals. And there's also some relationships between minerals and phytates and each other. So there have been some studies that some phytate-rich foods reduce the iron absorption in the gut. So if you consume a lot of phytates, up to 70% of your iron will not get absorbed from that meal if you're consuming it with a lot of phytates. So they've used tannins, they've used other anti-nutrients in the diet or compounds in food, and shown that when you take them both at the same time, you get a different result. So if you drink green tea at the same time, or tea of any kind really, at the same time as you're taking your iron, you deplete your iron absorption quite a bit. And so you're gonna get this with any iron salt. And one of the ways to avoid this is changing the form of iron to a non-salt form so that you don't have these interactions with the phytates. A lot of the phytate-rich foods that deplete your iron are also higher in some of the minerals that you might want, like potassium or magnesium might be in those foods. And so you may still want to eat those foods. And so if you do want to eat those foods to get the benefits that they have, one of the things that you can do is you can treat your food or produce your food in a more traditional way. So traditionally people would take care of anti-nutrients by soaking and sprouting their foods. So you can do that kind of treatment to your food and break down the phytates or make them less of a problem for your absorption of minerals. And another thing that you can do is just change the form of iron supplementation that you're doing and take something like the Ferritin Plus from Flora, which doesn't have the problem of being affected by phytates, and it's not in competition with your other minerals. So if you want to take a multivitamin, it's going to be in competition with your iron if you're taking like ferrous sulfate or any of those other compounds. But if you take the ferritin form or the heme form, it's not going to be in competition with your multivitamin. So these are options that you have to get around this problem. Now, low stomach acid is always going to be a problem if you have these iron compounds or other multivitamins, because you need to get your minerals. Basically, you need to have acid to cleave that compound in two, to break the ferrous glycinate into the or the ferrous gluconate into the iron and gluconic acid. And if you don't have stomach acid to break them apart, you can't get the iron, and you can't break it apart to absorb anything. So if you are on a proton pump inhibitor, or you're a senior with low stomach acid, or someone who's very stressed out with low stomach acid, someone with hypothyroidism generally has low stomach acid, somebody who is maybe just has low digestive function because of some other reason, then you may not be absorbing your iron because of that. Then you may want to change the form of iron that you're taking to one that doesn't require the stomach acid. And that means it can't be one of those compounds. It needs to be a different form. And for those people, there's certainly things that you can do to try and improve your stomach acid levels. You can use digestive bitters. You can take some calming deep breaths before you eat so that you're shifting from a fight or flight kind of state into a rest and digest state where you're better able to secrete digestive juices. However, that can usually be a process of changing these other issues in your life, and in the meantime you can just change the kind of supplements that you're using. So I hope that that answers your question. Yes, if you're taking a multivitamin or you're worried about competition with other minerals, you should change the form of iron to something like ferritin plus, or you can also look at heme iron, and that can help you. Also, some people resort to iron injections or transfusions, they're often called, because you need to get hooked up and download the iron that way. So that can be a bit of a last resort for a lot of people. So these are some other ways that you can get around it, and then you can work on improving your digestion and improving your diet and the way that you process or treat your foods as well. And with regards to the other aspect of why you want these other minerals, you want these other minerals for general health, all the benefits that they bring you as electrolytes, as building blocks for health, and also because of all of their interrelationships with each other. You do want to have all the minerals, and our soil can be quite depleted. So even if you're eating very well, you may not be getting all your trace minerals or all of your major minerals. So it is an important thing to think about. In particular, if you do have high blood pressure, is very important to think about what minerals you have on board, because it tends to mean that you're low in potassium, low in magnesium, and you're probably low in some other important nutrients like the omega-3s, because all of those are really important for making sure that you have proper dilated blood vessels and proper blood flow and all of that. So certainly, optimize your diet for those things so that you can maintain healthy blood pressure. And if you want a whole video on healthy blood pressure, that is also something that I can do. I will say that one of the main reasons that people struggle with their blood pressure so much is because most of us have metabolic dysfunction. The stats from the most recent studies are that only 5% of people are metabolically healthy, and the rest of us have some degree of insulin resistance, and insulin resistance can definitely contribute to having trouble maintaining your blood pressure. So I hope that that helps you, and I hope that you found this interesting, learning about iron and ways to optimize your iron absorption. Have a great day, and make sure to use that Ask Dana button below if you have a question for me, and I'll be sure to get back to you. Bye.